The wind was cold, but her silence was colder. Night was colder than anyone expected. Outside the studio lot, the wind howled through the empty alleys, pushing paper cups and leaves across the pavement. The shoot had gone long, much longer than planned. Most of the crew had already packed up and left. The lights were dim now, and the energy was gone. Keanu Reeves stood by the trailer door, quietly sipping coffee from a paper cup. It had long since gone cold, but he didn't care. His coat collar was turned up against the wind. He was waiting. He wasn't sure for what. Maybe for peace, maybe for silence, or maybe it's for someone. Then he saw her. Ana de Armas walked slowly. From the back lot, her shoulders hunched, her arms wrapped around herself. She wore only a thin white costume dress from the final scene. No jacket, no warmth. Her long hair blew wildly in the wind. Her steps were soft, like someone trying not to be noticed. But Keanu noticed. He always did. She didn't look up. She kept walking, head down, eyes distant, not toward the exit. Just walking, like she didn't want to go home. Like she had nowhere to go. He said nothing at first. Just watched. He had seen that look before. Not in actors, in people. In real people who were hurting but didn't want to be asked about it. She passed him without a word. But her hands were trembling. He took off his jacket, Ana. He said gently. She stopped. The wind pushed her hair across her face. She didn't turn fully, just half a glance over her shoulder. He walked over and held out the jacket. "You're freezing," he said. "No drama, no pressure." She looked at him. For a second, just a second, her eyes softened. But then she shook her head. "I'm fine," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Keanu didn't move. "Please," he said. "Just take it." Something in his voice made her stop pretending. She took the jacket, slowly, like it weighed 100 pounds. When she wrapped it around herself, her shoulders dropped, like the weight wasn't just cold. It was something deeper. Keanu didn't ask. He didn't need to. They stood there in silence. Just the wind. Just the night. And then unexpectedly she spoke. "You ever feel like everyone sees you but no one really sees you?" she asked, eyes staring out into the shadows. Keanu nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "More often than I'd like to admit." Ana turned to him, surprised. Everyone loves you." Smiled softly. "That doesn't always mean they know you." Her eyes shimmered, maybe from the cold, or maybe from something else. "I didn't cry in the scene," she said. "I was supposed to, but I couldn't. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I feel too much." He nodded again, understanding more than she knew. "You're allowed to feel too much," he said. "You're allowed to fall apart. You don't owe anyone your strength." The wind grew stronger. But inside the jacket, she looked a little less fragile now. She finally smiled. "Just a little. Thank you," she said. "Anytime," he replied. But that moment, quiet, small, full of pain and healing, would be remembered. What? No one knew was this that night when Ana took his jacket. She also made a silent promise to herself. A promise that would change everything. Not just for her, but for him too. And by the end of this story, everyone would be broken by what she did. Next. She kept the jacket but gave something bigger. Next morning was quiet. Ana didn't come to set early like she usually did. People noticed. She was always one of the first to arrive, usually with a soft hello and a small smile. But not today, Keanu. Arrived just after sunrise. He wore a different jacket, nothing special. A little worn around the sleeves. He looked calm as always, kind. Still, but inside he was wondering too. He didn't expect her to return his jacket. It wasn't about that. He just hoped she was okay. He walked to the catering table, poured himself a coffee, and nodded politely to the crew. He didn't talk much, but when he did, everyone listened. Not because he was famous, but because he was present in a way most people never were. A few hours later, Ana arrived. Her hair was tied back, no makeup, just her natural face. She wore the jacket he had given her. It looked oversized, soft around her small frame. She clutched it tightly around her. But her eyes were clearer than the night before. They had that kind of shine that comes After tears, Keanu saw her from across the lot. He didn't walk to her right away. He let her come when she was ready, and she did. She walked straight to him, not hesitating, but not rushing either. "Can we talk?" she asked, quiet but steady. He nodded. They walked toward the edge of the set where the lights faded and the noise softened. A row of tall trees lined the boundary. They sat on a wooden bench used earlier for a scene, now forgotten by most. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Me neither," he replied. She looked down at the ground, rubbing her hands together inside. "The sleeves. Last night, after you gave me this," she touched the jacket, "I sat in my car for hours. I didn't drive home. But I just sat, thinking." He waited, giving her space. "I've been carrying things," she said. "Things I never talk about. I thought I could act through them, use the pain. But instead it's been using me." Keanu nodded slowly. "Sometimes we carry too much for too long," he said. She looked at him, eyes wet but not broken. "I grew up feeling like I had to prove myself. Every role, every room. Like I wasn't enough unless I gave everything." Keanu stayed silent, letting the wind speak between their words. "But you," she said, voice cracking a little. You were kind. No pressure, no expectations. You gave me warmth without asking for anything back." He smiled, but it wasn't for praise. It was for her courage. "It meant something," she said. "And I want to give something back. Not the jacket, not yet, but something else." Keanu raised his eyebrows gently, curious but respectful. She reached into her small side bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote this last night," she said. "I don't know why. Maybe for myself, maybe for you." She handed it to him. He opened it carefully. Inside were just a few lines, written in simple ink. "I once believed silence was safety. But now I know sometimes kindness is louder than any scream." He read it twice, then folded it. He didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a kind of expression that said everything. "You should share it," he said finally. She shook her head. "I wrote it because you saw me. And maybe now I can start seeing others too." They sat for a while longer. No cameras, no scripts, just two people, healing in quiet company. What neither of them knew was that the note wouldn't stay hidden forever, because later that day, someone found Keanu sitting alone, staring at that folded paper, and someone snapped a photo that would soon go viral, not because of who he was, but because of the look on his face, the look of someone who had been deeply moved. That photo would start a wave of stories of quiet moments, simple kindness, and the power of presence. Ana's words would spread far beyond the set, and soon the jacket she still wore would become more than a borrowed coat. It would become a symbol of healing, of change, and of what was coming next. Because what Ana did later that week, no one saw it coming, and it would break everyone in the most beautiful way. Her silence sparked a storm. Photo went viral by accident. Someone from the crew had taken it on their phone, just trying to capture a quiet moment. Keanu sitting on a bench, jacket slightly open, a small folded paper in his hands.
A morning.
Sun behind him. His face wasn't smiling, but it wasn't sad either. It was something in between. Peaceful, emotional, real. They posted it with no caption, just he sat there for an hour. Didn't say a word. Just read something over and over. The internet did the rest. People began to ask, what was he reading? Why did he look like that? What had moved someone like Keanu Reeves so deeply? Within hours, fans began sharing their own stories. Stories of moments when kindness came quietly. Nurse wrote about a stranger who held her hand in a hospital hallway after she lost a patient. Teenager wrote about a classmate who shared their lunch every day when he didn't have one. An old man posted a memory of someone, letting him sit under their umbrella at a funeral. These weren't big acts, but they mattered. They felt like that. Photo simple. True. Meanwhile on set, Ana didn't know. Not right away. She had taken the day off her first break in months. She needed time. Time to sit in the sunlight. To walk without pretending. To breathe without planning. She walked along a beach near Malibu. Alone. Wind in her hair. Keanu's jacket still around her shoulders. She kept her phone off. Not because she wanted to hide, but because she didn't want to be pulled back in too soon. When she got home that night, she turned it on, and her screen lit up. Messages, notifications, emails, calls, dozens of people asking, "Was that your poem? Did you give him that note? Was that really about you?" She was confused until she saw the photo. Then she understood. Her chest tightened, not in fear, but in something deeper. Responsibility. Because now her words were out in the world, and they were echoing. The next day, she came back to set quiet. As usual, but people looked at her differently, not with gossip in their eyes, with respect, with warmth. Someone from lighting walked by and said, "Hey, thanks for that poem. Really helped me." Anna blinked. "How did you?" "My sister printed it, taped it to her mirror." Anna's breath caught. Keanu met her near the soundstage. He didn't bring up the photo. He just handed her a cup of tea and said, "Okay?" She nodded. "I think something's happening." He smiled, that quiet kind of smile only he could give. "Yeah," he said.
What?
"You started it." They sat under a tree between scenes, not talking much, just watching the clouds drift. Across the California sky, Anna took out a notebook, began writing again. This time wasn't for herself. It was for someone else. For everyone else, she wrote about the girl who smiles in crowds but cries alone at night. She wrote about the man who always gives, but never asks. She wrote about herself, not as a celebrity, not as a performer, but as someone who had forgotten she could still feel safe being seen. Keanu listened as she read softly, line by line. He didn't interrupt. When she finished, he looked at her with something almost like awe. "You should share these," he said again. Anna nodded. This time, she was ready. The next morning, she posted the first note online. She didn't sign her name. No photo, just the words. The people who feel the most often hide the most. Be gentle, always. In less than a day, the post had over 1 million shares. Not because it was viral, but because it was honest. People saw themselves in it, and slowly, quietly, something began to shift. Anna was becoming more than an actress. She was becoming a voice. For the quiet ones, the kind ones, the ones who don't scream, but still deserve to be heard. And behind her, just out of frame, Keanu watched, not taking credit, not stepping forward, just standing still. Because that's what you do when someone you care about begins to rise. You don't steal the light. You protect it. But what happened next wasn't just beautiful. It was also terrifying. Because not everyone likes when someone breaks the silence. And soon, someone would try to stop her, and the jacket would become more than warmth. It would become protection. The message was too powerful, and someone wanted it. Gonea's post didn't fade like others do. It grew each day. She shared a new note, each one short, honest, and filled with emotion that people rarely saw in public. I smile so people don't ask if I'm okay, but I wish they would ask anyway. You don't have to be loud to be brave. Sometimes, staying soft is the real fight. Kindness doesn't need a stage, just a heart that remembers pain. People started calling them the jacket notes. Nobody knew why. Nobody knew about the moment in the cold or the quiet bench, or the hands trembling inside borrowed sleeves, except to people, Anna and Keanu. He never said anything publicly, not once. But he always stood close. Always noticed when she seemed tired. Always waited after the shoot ended, just in case she needed someone to talk to. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something deeper, trust. But the world outside the studio was changing. Anna's simple notes were being shared in schools, on hospital walls, in courtrooms, in recovery centers. Therapists printed them. Teachers used them. Families stuck them on fridges. One post in particular exploded. You are not broken. You are just carrying more than most. It reached millions overnight, and then the emails started coming, not just from fans, but from brands, companies, executives. They wanted to buy the rights, license the message, turn the notes into slogans, ads, perfume bottles, fashion lines. Someone even offered her a seven-figure deal to turn the jacket into a designer brand. Anna said no to all of them, not because she didn't care about money, but because the message wasn't hers to sell. It belonged to the ones who cried quietly at night, the ones who didn't have a voice until. And that's when it began. The pressure. Agents, publicists, studio. They started pulling her aside. You have to protect your image. People are starting to think, you're too emotional. This could ruin your career. Anna listened, but she didn't back down. Instead, she wrote another note. If telling the truth ruins me, maybe I was never free to begin with. Keanu read it before she posted it. He looked at her and said quietly, you know they'll come after you for this one. She nodded. Let them. But the attacks didn't come from the outside. They came from inside the studio suddenly. She wasn't invited to meetings she used to lead. Scripts were rewritten without telling. Her scene was added, one where her character broke down on screen, scripted in a way that mocked the notes she had written. Anna refused to perform it. The director pushed. He yelled in front of the crew. He called her fragile. She stood still, silent. But Keanu stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He just walked up, looked the director in the eye and said, she doesn't need to perform pain for you. The set went quiet. The director scoffed, turned, and walked. Off. Anna looked at Keanu. For the first time since that night in the cold. She began to cry. But this time it wasn't fear. It was release that night. She posted a new note. Thank you to the ones who don't speak for me, but stand beside me when I speak. And she added a photo. The first one, her. In the jacket, no makeup. Eyes red but strong. The post shook everything. Some fans cried. Some brands pulled out of contracts. Some studios labeled her difficult. But most of the world, they listened. They saw something real, something they needed in Keanu. He said only one thing that day, whispered to her as the crew packed up, whatever happens next, I'm not going anywhere. She smiled. Weak but grateful, because what happened next would be harder than anything before. Someone would try to erase everything, not just the posts, not just the messages, but the story itself. And it would take more than a jacket to protect them this time. It would take truth and courage, and something neither of them had shown the world yet until now. They tried to erase her, so she made herself louder. It began with silence. Not her silence, but theirs. Her account disappeared overnight. Anna woke up to find her social media wiped clean. No warning, no appeal, no reason. The notes were gone, the photos gone. Even the comments, the thousands of messages from strangers saying thank you. You saved me. I finally feel seen. Were gone. It was like she had never spoken at all. She sat at her kitchen table, phone in hand, face pale. The jacket was still hanging on the chair behind her, the one Keanu had given her that night. Now, it felt heavier than ever. She called Keanu. He answered in one ring. It's gone. She whispered. He didn't ask what he already knew. I'm on my way, he said. When he arrived, he brought tea. He always did. She didn't know why, but somehow it helped. The warmth, the smell, the small act of presence. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally, she spoke. I knew they'd try something, she said. But I didn't think they'd just erase it. Keanu nodded, eyes soft. They're afraid of what can't be controlled. She looked up at him. I wasn't trying to be a threat. You weren't, he said. You were just honest. Anna's voice trembled. What if I stop now? Maybe I've already said enough. Maybe it's safer. Looked at her, gentle but steady. You don't write those words for safety, he said. You write them for people who don't feel safe, and they're still out there waiting. His words wrapped around her like the jacket had that night, and something inside her lit up again. Not anger, conviction. She stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the cloudy sky. Then I'll speak louder, she said. They can delete my page, but they can't delete people's hearts. That night, she created a new page. No fancy banners, no profile picture, just a plain background. And a name? The Jacket Notes Return. She posted the first message. They tried to erase the voice, but not the echo. People found it within minutes. Fans began tagging each other. She's back. We found her. They couldn't shut her down. Within an hour, the account had over 50,000 followers. Within a day, 100,000. But this time, it wasn't just fans. It was survivors. It was people who had lived through silence abuse, grief, loneliness, illness. Firan finally felt like someone had written for them. Anna didn't stop. She posted every day. But now, each post came with a story. Short messages from real people. No names, no faces. Just their words and pain and truth. She called them borrowed. Voices, she said. If you've been quiet too long, let me speak for you. And people did. A woman who lost her child sent her a line. I still set the table for 4. I don't know how not to. A teenage boy who came out and was thrown. Out wrote, my mom said I broke her heart. I wish she knew mine's still beating. Anna shared it all. She became a mirror. Not for attention, but for connection, but power. Even soft power makes enemies. The studio called her in. They said she was violating contracts. They said her posts were political. They said she was dividing the fan base. Anna sat across the boardroom, jacket on, hands calm. I'm not dividing anyone, she said. I'm reminding people they're not alone. You're a liability, the executive said coldly. She looked him in the eye, then dropped me. The room froze. Silence. Pose. Drop me, she repeated. If you think kindness is dangerous, maybe. You don't deserve my work. They didn't drop her. Not because they cared, because they were afraid of the backlash. Anna left the room with her head. Keanu was waiting in the hallway. He had heard everything. You okay? He asked. She smiled. I am now. He took her hand just for a moment. No one saw, but she felt it. And when she posted that night, she didn't post a quote. She posted the story. The real one. The cold night. The trembling. Hands the borrowed jacket. The man who stood beside her. And what happened after. People cried when they read it. People who had always felt like their stories didn't matter. People who had never seen their quiet pain reflected back. And they all shared the same sentence. This saved me. Anna read the comments and cried. Hand over her mouth, the jacket still warm around her shoulders. But she didn't know that someone was watching. Someone who wasn't crying. Someone who was planning. Because her words were reaching places they weren't supposed to. And the next thing they tried wouldn't just silence her, it would hurt her deeply. And it would push Keanu into a choice he wasn't ready to make. What she did next broke everyone, starting with herself. The message came late. Anna was rehearsing in a quiet corner of the studio when her phone buzzed. One line, no name, no number, just this. Stop writing or we release the footage. Her hands went cold. She stared at the screen. Footage? What footage? She didn't have to wonder long. Minutes later, a second message came. This time, link. She hesitated, then tapped it. A video loaded, grainy, obviously stolen from set security cameras. It showed her months ago, the night she cried under the tree. Keanu beside her, her face raw, makeup smudged. No dialogue. Just their body language to people, honest and vulnerable. The moment she had broken down. The moment he had reached out and hugged her, not for the cameras, not for a scene, just because she needed it. They had never spoken about that moment again. Not because it was shameful, because it was sacred. Now, someone was using it against them. She dropped the phone. The wind outside picked up. Brushing leaves against the trailer walls, she sat down, closed her eyes, breathed in, out. When Keanu arrived later that evening, she told him. He said nothing at first, just listened. His eyes darkened, not with fear, but with a sadness that reached. Bone deep. They're trying to humiliate you, he said quietly. Anna nodded. But I won't stop, she said. They'll release it, he warned. She looked up at him. Eyes wet but steady. then let them. Keanu studied her, then whispered something she never forgot. The world can't break someone who already gave their heart away willingly. And so, she made a decision. The next morning, she posted the footage herself. Not the whole clip. Just a still, her face buried in his shoulder, his arms around her, captioned only with this: "They wanted this to be my shame. But it's my proof that kindness still exists." It shattered the internet. Millions shared it. Millions cried. The jacket notes. It's already powerful. It became a global movement. People didn't just read them. They wore them, tattooed them, spoke them at weddings, at funerals. In courtrooms, Ana de Armas became more than an actress. She became a voice, a mirror, a symbol. But not everyone saw what it cost her. The pressure, the threats, the loss of roles, the studios that pulled back, the nights where she couldn't sleep. Because her heart carried so many borrowed stories, Keanu saw it. And on the 1-year anniversary of her first post, he did something no one expected. He walked onto a live interview, something he almost never did, and sat beside her. Not to speak, but to hold her hand. When the host asked, "What does she mean to you?" he said nothing for a few seconds. Then, quietly, "She reminded me that silence can be kind, but sometimes it needs to be broken." Ana looked at him, eyes full of something more than gratitude, something deeper. The world saw it, and they understood. Not everything needs to be shouted. Some revolutions begin with a borrowed jacket and a simple act of care. Ana never trademarked the notes. She never sold them, but she published them, every single one under a title. It broke everyone who had followed her journey. The Jacket I Never Returned. It became the fastest-selling book of the decade. Not because of fame, but because people saw themselves in it. Their fear, their longing, their quiet courage. Ana never stopped writing, even when her hand shook, even when her voice cracked, even when the world told her she was too soft. She kept going. And Keanu stayed beside her. Not as a protector, not as a hero, just as a man who gave his jacket to someone in the cold and never asked for it back, because what she gave in return, her truth. Her words, her strength was far greater. And when people ask today, what broke the world open? The answer is simple. She did not with a scream, but with a whisper, a note and a kindness so deep it echoed forever.